time to get your fix. Come on down, get your horrible gaming review. 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 Wow.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and welcome to another horrible game review. Before we get into it, a few disclaimers. Number one, the word horrible in the title of this video does not necessarily refer to the game or content I am reviewing, but much more the video itself. I do snap judgment reviews here. I usually get only about 5 to 10 hours with a game, though on this particular instance I got much more. But I'm just trying to tell you whether you're going to have fun right off the rip or not. Also, I do not give scored reviews on video games, not only just for everything I told you, but also because I believe video games are one of the most subjective forms of art. So I'm going to tell you the overview of what the game is, the pros and cons in my point of view, as all reviews are, and then tell you whether I personally will be sticking with this outside the purposes of this review or not. So what am I reviewing today? I am taking a look at No Man's Sky, specifically after the Frontiers update. Man, is this an update. So I've got another quick disclaimer on this one. As I told you in the beforehand, I usually only get 5 to 10 hours with each game. With this one specifically, I have gotten just shy of 20, and that's only for this playthrough. I actually have a 55-hour playthrough from before when the game first came out for Xbox. So I've played quite a bit of No Man's Sky, and I was really happy for another reason to go back to it. But I wanted to start fresh and really give you guys a feel of what this game has become over the years that it's been out. This may have been a mistake for the review, and one of the reasons that this review wasn't out 2 weeks ago when I intended to do it, because the sheer volume, the depth and volume of the things that are available to you in this game is just really impossible to even scratch the surface in an under 20-hour game, which presents its own pros and cons. So I can't wait any longer. I have to do this review. With that said, let's get into it. So what is No Man's Sky, if you've never played it? No Man's Sky is a procedurally generated survival game where you are a spaceman. One thing that you need to understand is that there is a story here. It is purposely kind of, I don't know what the word is, but it's very hard to grasp what the true themes of the story are. The characters are kind of out there. And all the real ideas that are shoved at you are very philosophical, with no real clear meaning in nature. There's definitely clear objectives, but the results of those objectives don't really answer any of the mysteries that are placed in front of you. I mean, the game itself starts up, you just wake up some mystery astronaut on a random planet with a broken ship with no memory of who you are, what you are, where you come from. Then you have to somehow piece together that ship using stuff given to you on the planet, fix your own equipment, get off the planet, and then the game just kind of opens up. I mean, look, let's just look past the story, because the story isn't why you're playing this game. This game is a sandbox of an absolute huge magnitude. This game procedurally generates entire galaxies around you with 5 to 6 planets in each planet where you can seamlessly move from space to orbit to atmosphere to surface without any loading screens, which I've always found a little bit crazy. Each planet spawns also its own flora, its own fauna. It has its own different weather events that will come at you at different random times, its own obstacles for being on that planet and staying on that planet. And really the game is about exploration at its very, very core. You use something called a scanner in your headset to get money by scanning objects such as flora, fauna, minerals, animals, plants, all of that stuff. Every scan gets you somewhere between 200 and 500 units for spending stuff. From there, though, we're not even close to done. I mean, that's the base. That's the base of what this game was when it released, which is really interesting in itself, but kind of cut and dry. Since then, since the 5 years since its release, they have added just content after content. You can now do freighters. You can now set up a crazy settlement area, which we're going to be talking about a lot in a little bit, like Mos Eisley. You can do derelict space station dungeon crawls. You can check out different derelict freighters in space. You can have space fights. You can search the monsters. You can tame the monsters and make them your pets. The list goes on and on and on of the stuff that they have just made available. And every time they seem to release an update, this game just gets a little bit better. I mean, not to mention the crafting and base building aspects that you would get from like a Minecraft. I mean, and that's really where this game shines, is just play it however you want to. I mean, do some of the missions to a point where you unlock things, such as the space anomaly, so that you can get multiplayer and also play with some of the features on the space anomaly, as well as unlock some other, like, recipes and stuff, but for the most part, play it your way. Do you want to be a merchant mogul fleet commander? Then get a fleet, get a team of ships and start launching them. Do you want to be just an explorer searching the stars for new life? You could do that. Do you want to be a crazy dogfight master? You could do that. I mean, the game offers just so many options. I mean, you even collect and trade ships. I mean, just about anything you think of that you could do in this game, you can do it in some way, though sometimes the process of actually doing that thing is buried a little bit within other systems. I mean, there's so much here that I can't possibly go over it all right now. However, the specific update that I'm reviewing is the Frontier update, which includes in its biggest hole settlements. This was something that was a little bit challenging for me because settlements take an astronomical amount of time, and we're going to get into that in a second. But basically, the whole idea of this newest update is that now settlements actually spawn on planets, which had never done before. Alien settlements, such as the Gek, the Viking, whatever of the main aliens, and you can go there, become like mayor, and actually build up your settlement and help it grow, which is very interesting, very new, something they haven't done before, especially since there on a lot of the planets, almost all of them, there are these weird sentinel things. Some planets have more aggressive sentinels, some planets have less aggressive sentinels, and they hate civilization. They just hate it. So, like, eventually they start attacking your settlement if it gets too big, and you have to find ways to defend it. Just really interesting stuff here. So, you know, that's kind of No Man's Sky in a nutshell. I know that basically all I've said is it's huge and anything you want it to be, but in a lot of ways it is. I mean, it's just a very interesting game. So I'm going to go into the pros and cons, but before I do, I have to just take another second to give you kind of a pro-con all-in-one. I always like to go into the pros first, then do the cons, then stick with it. But there is kind of a feature of this settlement update, and something I want you to understand, because I'm very transparent about my review process. And one of the things about this, why I didn't get to as much of it as I would have wanted to, is both a pro and a con in itself. So I'm going to say it right here up front. And that is the settlement time on building things. And really, this is carte blanche throughout the game. Almost everything you do in this game is timed. Kind of like Animal Crossing, or a lot of actually free-to-play games on mobile, stuff like that, where like you want to build this thing, but you've got to wait a whole day before it gets built. Now, unlike the reasonings behind those other games where it's all about making you pay to speed up the time, this game, it's actually more about, hey, this isn't going to be ready for 4 hours. Go do something else in this game. So the reason this is a pro and a con, well, the reason it's a pro is one thing that sucks about a lot of games about in this fashion, this survival fashion, is that you're focused on one thing until you're done. You really don't get time to explore other aspects or multitask, because like, hey, I want to build this house. You have to focus on that house till it's built. And one of the things about that is everything builds just about instantaneously. With this game and this time constraint, it forces you to be like, well, I can't do anything at my settlement for another 4 hours. I'll go explore the rest of the galaxy. I'll go gather more units. I'll go do some mercenary missions. I'll go try and buy a new ship. Stuff like that. Like, it forces you to be like, hey, there's tons of time here, go kill it. It also makes it kind of more realistic. I mean, when you're building a settlement in a lot of other games like this, stuff just happens instantaneously, and let's face it, nothing happens instantaneously in the real world. So in a lot of ways, I kind of respected that about this game. However, it is a con, because if you're somebody who's been playing this game, just sinking the hours in, doing everything that they have to offer, well, you've done a lot of stuff. This is the new thing. You want to get through this. You don't necessarily need to go explore more stuff, so you want to just move through this, and you can't. This locks it. It locks it behind some insane time. And don't get me wrong, some of the times are real short. Some of them, I've seen them as short as 20 minutes. But other ones are, like I said, 4 hours. And it's like, if you came back to the game after doing everything else you wanted to do in the game just to try the settlement thing, you're going to have to find time sinks in between. And that's a little annoying if you've already established everything else and don't care about it. So it's both a pro and a con. I understand why they did it. I don't necessarily think they should change it, but it's definitely going to irritate a lot of returning players. So now let's go into the pros and cons. The biggest pro, without a doubt, in this game is the versatility. I mean, it's almost second to none. There's only a couple of things in my head that I can think of that you can't do in this game, or that doesn't happen to you. You can buy ships, trade with ship dealers, fight pirates, trade on space stations, get settlements, build houses, build mansions, build up freighters, build up houses on your freighters. Like, I mean, it's just Astro. Just explore, make pets. I loved the pet making aspect, and although the pet making aspect was not part of this update, it's something I had not gotten to experience before this update, and it was just thrilling. It was my favorite part, without a doubt. The fact that I could feed the pet, then tame the pet, and then the pet would actually talk to me through my sensors, it just was this extra little flavor nugget that I liked. I really enjoyed it. I am going to talk about that slightly in the cons, but we'll get there. Just this game's versatility is off the charts, and worth trying, without a doubt. Without a doubt. The procedural generation is a masterclass. It is absolutely insane, the stuff that this game does, all by itself, without anybody programming it. It's great. The settlement stuff itself is also very interesting and kind of intuitive. And so I'm going to say right off the bat, one of the big pros of the settlement is not necessarily the base building. Basically, when you get that settlement, it's going to be like, you get the settlement, it's in debt, you have to try and build it back from being in debt by making decisions. First thing you build is an administrator building, that takes 4 hours. Then after that's built, you get to make decisions based on the populace putting those decisions in front of you. One irritating thing about this, well, I shouldn't say that here, I should say that in the cons. Well, okay. Rearrange my thoughts. The best part about this process is the political decisions you have to make. It actually makes you feel really, really engrossed in the alien life forms, whereas a lot of times they kind of felt like decoration in before. Don't get me wrong, you can talk to every alien life form in this game, but usually it's just dialect help, or because you can't speak any of their languages, or some other weird like trading thing. It doesn't really make you feel connected to them as a society. This does. My Gex society, I have a Gex settlement. It's very interesting because they'll actually come forward. This guy has this problem with this guy, and you have to make the decision as to who's right, who's wrong. I absolutely loved this part of the settlement aspect. It really brought this huge flavor to the game that it needs, especially from the NPCs. And especially in a game where there's huge swaths of it that just seem empty. So let's go ahead and get into the cons. My number one con is a big one. This game has been out for 5 years. Guys, the bugs are absolutely ridiculous. Just ridiculous. I mean, start with the fact that this game does not accurately find the settings on the device that you're working to run the game in, and you will have to play with them graphically no matter what, unless you're on a console, which is already super frustrating. But there is just huge amounts of bugs. I mean, things spawning in weird places, things spawning out of place, freighters appearing in starships, crash bugs. I had the game actually crash a couple of times. Just all sorts of weird things. I can't count the number of times when I was entering my freighter, the entirety of the freighter disappeared. It just vanished from sight. Then there was another bug that does appear fixed now, where I couldn't even access my freighter, my Armada's expedition site without it just immediately like cutting me out. So yeah, this game's 5 years old. I can't not talk about the bugs. Like, you've had 5 years, and this does not work seamlessly. This is not a seamless game. If you play this game, you are going to run into a bug. And considering the fact that I ran into probably at least 6 of them in my 15 hours, and at least 2 of them crashed my game, it's a little rough. That's a little rough. That's not great. That's not a huge amount of consistency. And I understand this game is very ambitious, but the sheer amount of time that it's been out for this many bugs is a little bit inexcusable. Gotta point that out. My next 2 issues are going to be directly with this update. Number 1 is the decision-making progress that I kind of touched on in the pros, where you decide, everything. That also influences the buildings that you can make in the settlement. So you can't actually build a building that will make your settlement more profitable or help it until that is pushed in front of you by the actual settlement itself. Like, they have to bring that to you and be like, we want to build either this or we want to build either this, and you have to make the decision. You can't just be like, hey, we need to build this to make the city better. That's a little bit rough and a little bit janky, especially since sometimes you just want to get your settlement profitable, you have your buildings built, you've solved all the political discussions at that time, and then you realize that, like, it's just not spawning the next building mission. And I've spent like an hour or 2 where it just hasn't spawned the building mission. That's super frustrating. Like, you already have this huge 4-hour time limit, sometimes at like 20 minute to 4 hour time limit on the buildings themselves. Why can't I just pick to build the next building? That's super frustrating. I actually hope they correct it. It's my biggest problem with the settlements, without a doubt. I mean, other than the overall bugs, but I think that's an overall game issue, and I don't think that's going away just because of the ambition of the game. But that right there, like, as far as actual design flaw, I think is rough. As far as my other con, I will say one thing about the settlements is the buildings are very similar. And again, I have not been able to get super deep in. I wish I could. I haven't, just because of the sheer amount of time you have to wait to get stuff going in the settlement stuff. But from what I did play, all the buildings look very similar, to the point where when I'm in my settlement, I have a very hard time finding my administration building. So I wish there was a little bit more variation in the actual buildings that show up on the settlement, make them a little bit more different. So there you guys go. As far as whether or not I'm going to stick with it, yeah, I've been streaming it on Twitch. Sorry for the little extra plug there, but I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. I'm always experiencing and exploring new things. I love playing with the animals as well as the settlement stuff, so I'm probably definitely going to keep playing with this, and definitely exploring it and definitely enjoying it. So I'm definitely sticking with it. I really did enjoy this game despite any of the flaws. I enjoyed this update. I think it's the move in the right direction. I'm looking forward to the stuff they add to this game in the future. I hope they just keep adding to it, because I think this game could be just already, it's something that's just so amazing in its current form. I can't wait to see what they do with it in the future. I hope this review has helped you guys in any way, shape, or form. As usual, you can contact us on Facebook at OldManGamingDH, on Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord. The link is in the description below, and be let known whenever I'm streaming and all of our content you can influence from there. And then, of course, check us out on Twitch at Old Man Gaming DH. We've been doing quite a bit of streaming there. As long as you guys keep watching and listening, we will keep making it. See you next time.